Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session, how to make your fundraising better by knowing what to do before fundraising. We truly hope that today's session is going to be amazing and you would learn a lot from it. So I'm going to hand it over to the speaker of today, who will take us further on the topic. Thank you. Over to you, Dotun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Princess. And thank you if you're also watching the video. So we're going to be talking about fundraising and not necessarily fundraising, but what you're supposed to do before fundraising. I used to hear, so many founders or those that started civil society organization, or what we basically know as non-profit organizations. They do say, oh, we've not gotten funding. What are the ways we can use to get funding? Is there any other thing that needs to be done that they've tried their best, but they haven't raised even $1 since they started? The irony of it is that donors are looking for those organizations that can implement and that they can provide funding to. So, which then means that there's something missing for us as an entity, or for those organizations that are looking for funding. So in this short video, I'm going to tell us what we should be thinking about even before fundraising. So it's like, because fundraising itself is a pipeline. You want money so that you can use it to execute or implement your mission. You want funds because you need to use it to pay salaries also. Which is a tiny part of the amount of income that goes into nonprofit, right? So, and it's important. I used to say, you want to change the world, of course, you need some funding for you to change the world or change your space. So what are the things that you're supposed to do before it? In this video, there are 3 things that I think you should be thinking about, especially in this age. And what I've also, so you might want to think like, who is this for actually? These 3 things. Majorly, it applies to those organizations that are just starting out, and that's when. If you're a nonprofit and you're just starting out, this is meant for you. Especially the context I'm going to be talking about will be for you, and not for an organization that has maybe gotten one grant before and afterwards couldn't get access to any other funds again, because those are 2 different things. So it means that there are some things you need to look at. You need to do some reflections on what you did in that first grant that you are now not able to get another grant. So I'm talking about NGOs, social impact organizations that haven't gotten any funding before, and they're trying to access funding. Of course, if you go to Fund for NGOs, for example.org, you get thousands of requests for proposals, right? So I'm going to be talking about, so I'm not going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about what you need to do even before putting ink, before you starting to type or respond to proposals. So what is the first thing? Please, you need to get presence. Yes, get online. Get your initiative, get it online. And when I mean online, there are different ways to be online. The first I will say is get a website. Now, it could also be just a blog page. So which might not necessarily be you looking out for a huge website. It could be a blog page right from blogspot.org or .com, right from, I'm not sure if Google still do Google websites. So there are blog sites that you can use and use it to start out and just have that link that goes to the good work you're trying to do. Then you can then talk about, okay, I want to start using Twitter. I want to start going on Facebook. Of course, you can open a Facebook page easily. You know, I've been on the board of some civil society organizations that I know that, oh, they were much more known on Twitter or Facebook, but I mean, they needed to come online and have a page of your own, because Twitter might seem like you're just under a social handle where people can communicate with you. But in order to be seen easily, or for donors or supporters of your work, you need to get a website that can communicate your mission, your vision. They can state what exactly you're doing. They can also communicate your stories. And I'm coming to that in a bit. Because on Twitter and Facebook, those stories might be mixed up. That's one. Number two, you might not be able to really communicate, give a detailed story on these social media platforms, and add LinkedIn as well, because that's professional. Anyways, that's what some people say. So you need to get online, have an online presence. Let anybody be able to see you from any part of the world. It's very important, because you will then find out. So maybe on our next course, we'll be talking about where you need to go to access funding, like standalone. What are the different ways in which you can fundraise? And you will then see the importance of having a website, not a Twitter page, not a Facebook page, not a LinkedIn page, uh, because there are some there's some entities that are just built to have a pool of funds and then send your organization, send your entity some funds for you to carry out your mission. And it's the first check is by looking at your website. So online presence is very important. Please, I've advised so many people, you can go and learn how to just create a one-page website. Take your time to learn that, so that you won't have issues with maybe a web developer or so. And I mean, we can also have a course on how do you get yourself an online presence without breaking the bank and with and sustainably. So you need to get an online presence. The second thing, yes. So you need to have a story behind your mission. So you work to empower young people. You need to have a story, even if it is one young person you have empowered for. Have a story around that one young person. And for those of us that know how to put out stories, so you have a problem, um, you have where you met the problem, what you did, the change that happened. So, and you can do this using several means on your web page. So this is very important. And I used to tell people that don't keep your story on your website. Your story is your impact story, especially when you're starting out. Maybe you've used a little part of your funds or funds from family members to get that story out, which is how things start. You should be able to, you have said you're passionate about a cause, then raise a little bit of amount of money and use it to get a story out. So get that story. Do not go and put it on the second page of your online of your website. It should be something that you want to put in front of your website. It should be the first thing. People should be able to see your story as they're getting into your website. Is the first thing they're seeing. Like, that's your key story. So it's important that you have a story. And like I said, it doesn't need to be a big story. Um, so it is what we call pilot. Like, pilot what your objective or your mission of your nonprofit is about. So it could be just empowering one person, one young person. It could be if your work is focused on smallholder farmers, for example, you want to be able to tell a story of maybe a young farmer that you provided improved seedling for, where maybe his yield increased because of your own intervention. It could be that your work focuses on training artisans, for example. So you just want to take, if you think about focusing on 20 artisans and you're able to get one artisan um, to increase his income from where he was before, then in that case, you can use that story as that story you want to place on your first on your website and put it on the first page. That's a good way to position yourself for fundraising, because if somebody who wants to support your mission wants to might actually stumble on your website and just find out that, oh, you're doing a great job, you have a story, I want to keep on supporting them. And I'll also tell you why having this story is also important, which is related to the third point. So I've mentioned when on what you need to do, which is in terms of positioning yourself. The first is that you need to get yourself an online presence. Get online. That's where some of the donors you write to will want to first go as a first point of contact to see who is doing what, or what story do you have on your web page. So it's important to have this, then get a story, have a story. Like I said, is not something that needs to break the bank. You have designed, you have said that, oh, you are passionate about XYZ. You want to focus on, okay, maybe women that are pregnant, for example, for you to provide and prenatal, antenatal, advisory support to them. You can just focus on one, maybe out of 20. Focus on one story. Have you been focused on the 20? Get one story out of how you have been able to impact knowledge into that mother. So it's about just doing a pilot of your mission and be able, when you're doing it, be able to capture stories, take pictures, get interviews from your project participants so you can use on your online platform. So it's important that you have a story. Then you have a story. The third thing you need to think about. So now you have an online presence, then you have a story. Then the third thing will be that you need to network. You need to meet. So not just meeting people, but those that can support your work. So which we call supporters of your mission. So they are the ones that, now I'm not talking about maybe donors or so, because you can have individual supporters of your work. So individuals can actually put in money to support the work that you do. So you want to meet this set of people. Now you need to go to where they are, where they're having their own events. You go to conferences, you try and go to conferences that are related to the work that you do, not unrelated conferences. But You need to network. And I think the best way to do that is to first map. Yes, map all those supporters that work in your own thematic areas. What I mean by that is if you're working in, for example, you work on transparency and accountability, you want to look at, okay, where are the donors that work on, that support transparency and accountability? You work in the area of maybe sexual and reproductive health. You want to map, get a list of all of them, those that are in Nigeria, those that are based internationally. You then, when you have that list, you can then think of, okay, where are they? Are they having a conference? Are they going to be having a meeting? So you can attend or meet with them. And that's important. Or you want to talk to maybe an advisor or a board member to introduce you to XYZ. So because they would only support the area that they are focused on. So you can't be focusing on, let's say, education, basic education, for example, and you now have a donor that is focusing on maternal health. The strategy won't be the same thing. So you need to know those that are working in your own thematic area and find every way to meet them. Now, it is one thing to meet with them. It is another thing to be able to clinch. Yeah, I say clinch. You clinch to that prospective. Yeah, is a prospective donor or prospective supporter of the work that you do. Now, for you to be able to do that, you need to tell your story, which is from here. I have a story first. Then, in 1 minute of your introduction, you quickly tell that story that you have, and that is what you do. So you focus, maybe you focus on inmates that are in prisons, like supporting them, providing knowledge care for them, or so. You can get a story when you meet those that support such kind of work, maybe rule of law or democracy strengthening or so. Those are the kind of stories you want to quickly tell that will make your prospective donor to shift focus in the work that you do. So, and that is very important. Is the third thing. You need to know where those that support the work that you focus on, where they are, and you need to get to know them or meet them. Meeting could be in person. It can also be offline these days, where meetings are done online, which means you need to find a strategy to actually meet with that donor. And one way is to talk about the work they do, or is to ask a question when they are presenting about their work. And with that, you can actually get a connection and say, oh, okay, maybe you can talk to me later, or so we can chat more about that question later. You got a clinch already online. So, in summary, there are 3 ways you position yourself. And maybe before I summarize, now, you network. I just remembered something. You network with those that can support your work. You also network with civil society organizations or NGOs that are also in your thematic area. This is partnership. It's very important. And one thing I'll advise is make sure that you are partnering with NGOs that have more experience than your own NGO. So more experienced entities You can co-write grants together. They can call you when they're writing grants and say that, oh, let's work together on this because you have this strength, you have this story. So I just remember that. So it's not necessarily only those that can support your work financially, but also there's other NGOs who are also in your space, maybe some that have been working for the past 10 years and you're just starting. You should find a way to partner with them, wherever they are in terms of maybe location and all that. Because that can help you. You can then be part of a joint proposal. Because when you have not received a grant before, in fact, even if it's an individual, they will want to test you with money. So you have, which is not as huge as, yes, you really want to implement. But you see, the more experienced ones, they have access to big grants that are not necessarily the ones you can, because you cannot even apply to those big grants that they have at the moment. Most donors or supporters will want to provide you, if you're just starting, they want to provide you with seed money. So what I mean by that is grants, $5,000, and I mean, some might just be less. And you will see the more experienced NGOs looking out for 100,000, 500,000, of course, because they've been working on that thematic area in the past, and also they might have more overhead costs to do than you are. So these are some of the things you need to think about. So in summary, I mentioned first, if you to position yourself for fundraising, or which could be by grants or by an individual supporting the great work that you do. Go online. You need to get an online presence. You need to get a website. Or if it's a blog page, you can do that yourself. Then you can then start thinking about getting words out on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So you have an online presence. It means that the markets that you have access to is global. Global donations can come to your entity to support the mission that you're working towards. And then once you've gotten an online presence, try and pilot the work that you do. It's important. Pilot your mission. If your mission statement is to empower smallholder farmers, try before fundraising comes or before funding comes. I mean, you can fundraise from family members. Even you getting money from yourself is also fundraising. You can pilot what you want to do with 20 smallholder farmers or 10 older smallholder farmers and document what you have done for them. For example, it might be that you bought improved seedlings for them. You document all these things, take pictures, get interviews. If you're focused on maybe maternal mortality, reducing maternal mortality, oh, maybe you focus on, okay, women that are pregnant, then you can think about, okay, I'll focus on 20. And maybe out of that 20, yes, you follow them up, you provided kits, you provided advice and all that for them. You can take a story of one out of those 20 and make that your own story. So it's important that you have a story. Pilot the activities of your mission with the small funds that you have and be able to tell the story and make it available all around your platform. So because you don't just have your story and keep it, it should be on the first page of your website. Don't keep it in the desk. And when you have the story, yes, you can move forward and then say that, oh, I want to network. Because what it means is you have a story. You have a success story already. So you can map those that are supposed to support your work. Of course, you should have done that when you're starting out with your mission statement. Map all those that can support the kind of work that you do, your thematic area, and find a way to reach out to them. Conferences, they are presenting, they have online meetings, you can ask questions. Yes, because detailed questions means that the presenter might say, oh, okay, let's get to talk about this conversation later on, you know, and maybe you exchange email addresses, and that's how clinching starts, which means, yes, you've grabbed a potential donor already, or it could be at conferences, you ask questions, there's a conversation, within 2 minutes, you've explained your story, and they're like, wow, oh, you're doing this great thing. Okay, let's keep on having this conversation. I think my organization will soon publish a request for proposal. I think you will be a strong applicant. Or they say that, okay, we don't accept unsolicited proposals. You can actually, we will come back to you and have more questions. So let's exchange emails, and you exchange emails, and you continue the conversation from there. So those that support the work that you do. And secondly, in terms of networking, you also want to know NGOs with that are more experienced in that thematic area. You need to partner with them, because one thing that does is it allows you to have access to funds that are not necessarily seed funding. Because at your level, if you're just starting out, there's a limit to what a potential donor can hand over to you as a fund. You need to start from the scratch and get some seed money, make good use of it, be able to report it, then you graduate from getting seed money. So, and that's how it works almost everywhere. So networking, getting to know those that are supposed to support your work, and also civil society or NGOs that are relevant in your thematic area. These two groups that I've mentioned should be in your thematic area. Don't go and meet an entity that is working on youth development while your own entity focuses on maybe people living with disabilities that are supposed to have access. It might not be the same thing. So you need to think about it. So in summary, these are the 3 ways you prepare yourself for funding. Yes, you don't just go and be writing grants. No, there is a pipeline for that. And that is what I've explained. When get an online presence, do not let anybody ask you, what do you do, or where can I do, and you cannot provide. So get an online presence, would even be a blog spot, network. No. So it starts from then having a story, have a good story from your pilot. Then lastly, you get to meet people that support the work that you do, and those NGOs that are more experienced. I think us for now. I'm not sure if we had more participants, if we'll take questions, or if there are no questions. Princess, I think it'd be nice to call it a day.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So even if there are no questions right now, I'm sure that we can always receive emails with questions, and then we'll find the time to respond to them. Thank you so much for this.
And I also think that since it will be on YouTube, if you're watching, you can also drop your comments. You can use the comment box for your questions, and we will be happy to respond to them. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we have someone's hand up. Onyeka, please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, Princess and Mr. Batunde. I'm sorry I joined late, but I was able to grab some of the key points you raised. And my issue is currently is about the storytelling, right? The story. And I don't know, in most of the things, most of the applications I've seen or the opportunities I've seen, I don't know where do you think would be convenient to infuse that story? Because most of the times some come with word limits, why some they just ask you the problem statements. So I don't know where do you think one can infuse that the
Yeah,
story
I
into
think you.
the application. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I think you've answered it. See, in problem statements. So in problem statements, you weave it in because problem statements is tries to look at what's the background issues. So what are the data? What are the thinking around that problem? You have had a story around it. I will weave in my own story and what I've done regarding that, because there are some things that maybe empirical data you don't have. So when you don't have empirical data, you want to use your own work in replacing that. So I think that is one way of doing that. It depends on the template that. So that's when you're writing grants, and that is, I think that is another. That's another thing to focus on, maybe when writing grants. But this didn't. So this, what we're talking about is before you even write the grant, but also that is applicable because it means you already have a story when you're writing the grant. So I would say weave it in the problem statement. If there's a space of about your organization, it is a good time to weave in the story. I don't think there's anywhere you cannot weave in story. Activities, they will ask about activities. In activities, I can weave my story that, oh, I'm going to do this activity because this was the activity that made XYZ to happen. In fact, that is showing that you already have a past performance in that area. So I think that there are several places, if it is about grant writing and you want to weave in your past stories, then there must be a place where you should do that. There are several ways: problem statements, about yourself, activities. You can actually put your story there. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great. Okay, Princess, I think over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for this insightful session. Thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to drop your questions in the chat box, in the comment sections when you watch this on YouTube, and see you next time. Thank you again, Dotun. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.